I realized later that actually me being able to play ping pong is actually a genetic thing. I don't play it anymore. Mm-hmm. If you give me a ping pong table and a ball and a paddle, that I would still quite have the knack of it, and it would be quite okay. And I found out later, my father's brother, Robert Jose, was a professional ping pong player.
Yeah.
And that kind of like passed down to me somehow.
So that was like a huge sort of aha moment then.
Yeah, you want me to dive into it? I'm allowed. Okay, I'm gonna dive into it. Okay, so
do you want to dive into it?
I will dive into it.
People, good day, good night, good evening, good afternoon, good everything. Welcome back. It's been maybe a little while, but welcome back to the SunSide Kingdom Show, the place where we highlight Dutch Caribbean role models doing epic things in their field. And today we have with us a very special guest, hailing from the beautiful island of Aruba with many beautiful beaches.
Absolutely.
The perfect white sand. Aruba Dushitera, as they would say. Our guest is Eva Croes. She's a dynamic professional dancer, educator, and choreographer. That word has always given me trouble. It's a bit of a tongue twister. Originally from Aruba and now based in Amsterdam, Eva is the founder of EMA Dance Co. Mm-hmm. And Eva has made her mark globally, from performing in Jordan to touring in Germany and even gracing the, you might have to help me with this one because this is more Spanish, Benil de la Habana.
Biennale de la Habana.
Okay, you see, sorry, Spanish viewers. I failed Spanish in high school, man. But beyond her dance career, Eva launched her own IGTV show, What's the Tea, and co-hosts the BaiBin. Okay, so I got that one correct. BaiBin, Be Right Back podcast, named Docent van het Jaar in 2022. Mm-hmm. She continues to shape the dance scene in the Netherlands and Aruba. So join us as we dive into this amazing conversation. People, welcome to the SunSide Kingdom Show. So Eva.
What's up?
Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for the invitation.
You're welcome. Thanks for coming all the way down from Alkmaar. If I can actually say, I shouldn't say where it is.
It's okay, y'all. I live in Alkmaar. Yes, all fine.
Yeah, visiting us down in the south today. So tell us a bit about what's life like for you in 2024.
Well, I think 2024 has so far been a light year. And what do I mean with that is that I've had quite some health stuff the past 2 years. So had to take care of that, of course. Mm-hmm. And I have to say that this year, after a while, this year has so far been the year of growth, the year of reflection, the year of understanding myself better.
Oh, nice.
And trying to find my place in what for me feels like this new wave of life. You know, we were talking earlier about our age, and I really feel like when you hit that 30 mark, there are definitely some shifts in your life. Mm-hmm. And I'm somebody who, I can deal with change, but you have to give me the time to to settle.
Process it. Yeah.
And in my life especially. So no, this year has so far been the year of finding the light.
Nice.
And it's very much there, and I'm enjoying it so far.
Nice. So who is Eva Croes, the professional? Because I see dancer, I see Docent van het Jaar, so that's teacher of the year. Let's, in a nutshell, if you would give your elevator pitch, who is Eva Croes?
Okay. I'm Eva, and I'm 32 years old, and I have been dancing since I was 3 years old.
So that's 29 years.
Yeah, of experience, basically.
Mhm.
And in 2013, I came here. I moved to the Netherlands. I immigrated here, along with the Bersalen from the time. For those of you who don't know, the Bersalen are like the group of Caribbean students who get what they call a beurs from their islands, so that they can come and study over here.
Yeah.
So I came in with the Bersalen from 2013. Came to study at the academy, Amsterdamse Hogeschool voor de Kunsten. Now it's called Academie voor Theater en Dans. Professionalized in education, and then I specialized in ballet and contemporary dance and modern.
Yeah.
It's not an elevator pitch anymore, but that's okay. Yeah, no, who am I as a professional? I dance, I teach, I choreograph, but I love to be creative, and if I can earn my money with that as well, that's also a bonus.
So your teaching is primarily in dance?
Yes, I teach dance. At the moment, I'm also the mentor of a class. So I teach at the ROC in Amsterdam, and they have an MBO dance academy there. So you have MBO and HBO. So the MBO is then the vocational level, I'd say. And then I have students there that are like 15, and the oldest one is like 20-something. So they come fresh from the high school era. And I mentor them in their first year, basically, in their professional trajectory as they're studying and learning to become professional dancers themselves, of course.
So what I'm hearing here is that there's also that sort of dynamic of, and I could imagine in the creative arts, besides being a teacher, you're also a bit of a mentor to these students. In guiding them throughout that journey to some degree? I
mean, I do think you come to school for a reason. I must say that lately, these past few years, I've been noticing that, there are many ways to become a professional. You don't per se have to attend an academy to get to a certain level, because I feel if you have good training and you have good teachers, you can already get there, and your own determination, of course. How bad do you want it?
Yeah.
But when you come to school, in this case, when you come to us at the ROC, of course, because you're fairly new to the industry, you come from a certain background, and now you want to professionalize. And taking those first few steps is also very hard for them, especially, for example, now we're very much with the social media, and you have to learn to profile yourself on social media too. Yeah. Because a lot of the jobs also come from social media. So they come and we try to mentor them, yes. And I think for me, as a mentor now for the 4th year, I think it's about giving them that safe space to allow them to express themselves, and not feel judged by it. Yeah. And I think that's the most important thing, that you feel safe enough to be able to express yourself in such a way, because it's with that's what you're going to make your money with. Yeah. And then they need to know what's the important things to know, once I step into the world. What if a choreographer asks me to stand naked somewhere, for example, and it's kind of like, harsh, intense, but doesn't have an artistic meaning. You also have to know your boundaries as an artist. You can't just up and do whatever you want just because you get paid for it. You also have to just feel good about it and know, am I going to be there because you want to see me like that, or is it because it really does have a certain artistic meaning, and then I'm willing to expand myself as an artist and stand there and do what you need me to do. So those are also the things that we try to teach them. How do you make your CV? How do you have a professional portfolio? What kind of picture should you have as a dancer? Because I won't take you seriously as a dancer if you show me a picture in your bikini, for example. So it's all in those little things. And it's MBO, so obviously we start quite very much at the basics of the foundations of certain styles. And once you graduate and you want to go to HBO is a whole different thing. You have to study essays, study papers, learn about education, learn about how do students think, puberbrain, because I specialize in pubers. So I also very much have to dive into how does a teenager think? How does a teenager feel? Brain. Yeah. And I have to say I enjoy it, because teenagers are teenagers. They just tell it like it is. And I'm kind of like, yes, but there are more perspectives for you to learn from. And that's what we're there for, basically.
I would imagine that your mom placed you in dance, but somewhere along the way, your own passion for it grew. And what were your true influences?
Well, you're right about my mom, because I grew up with my mom. I didn't grow up with my father. So when my mom was pregnant of me, she and my dad had split, but my mom had an inkling that my father's genetics would definitely take over, because my father is a very tall man.
Okay.
He's like 2 meters something. I'm 5'10", so I'm like 180.
Yeah, so you're also a tall lady.
I'm a pretty tall girl. For a female, I'd say I'm pretty tall.
Yeah.
And from what I understood, my mom was like, it's because I knew that you were probably going to be a very tall girl that I decided to put you into ballet class, because then you in any case could have like a nice posture, you know, carry yourself a little properly. But I think little did my mother know that putting me on dance class was actually going to be like a slight introduction to my future.
Yeah.
And I started with ballet. Later on, I moved on to tap. I loved it. I also did sports. I even did tennis at the time. And I say it with a certain tone because my father is a tennis instructor. And at the time, he was also a tennis instructor. So I think I did tennis and it wasn't really my thing. And I was kind of like, not so sure if I want to keep doing this. I also did volleyball. Loved it. Basketball. Wasn't my thing. I could have been great. But no. But I always stuck back to dance.
Yeah.
You know, my cousins also always did. Let's just say our parents put us on like extracurricular activities, especially for after school, because they were working. And I think it's better that you put your kid on some type of hobby activity than if you take the streets, you know.
Yeah.
So we all did something. So the boys usually would be into soccer or baseball, which I also enjoy, by the way. And the girls, in this case, me and my cousin, she did gymnastics. She also did dance, but I don't think she liked it as much as gymnastics.
Yeah.
So she did the gymnastics and I stuck to dance. And yeah, the influences I had were, I think, as a kid, you just do something because you like it. But once I turned 16 and I got a little bit older and more mature in that, then I started to take it very much seriously.
Yeah.
Very seriously. Yeah. It became something so important to me. It even went above school.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't care that I had exams. I had dance. I had to perform. Mom, hello? No, the grades weren't there, babe. The grades weren't there. You know, so, and that's what I said earlier too. Very stubborn.
Yeah.
Very eigenwijs. You know, I don't need a stupid diploma. I just want to dance. She said, but you need your diploma. So you better work for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm the one who, in the end, also just went for it. You know, I must say that my cousins, they all do something either I have a cousin who's a lawyer, another cousin who's in marketing. I think the other cousin is also into marketing or communication, something like that. And I'm the dancer. So
The free spirit.
I'd like to see it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I'd really like to see it that way, because I see sometimes when we do get together, which doesn't happen often because we all have our own lives, that they're also very much like, but what do you do exactly? What is a day like? What does a day in your life look like, you know?
Yeah.
And then they're like, whoa, okay, yeah, no, that's not
Dynamic.
for me. Yeah, great for you. It's not for us. And then I'm
Yeah.
like, that's totally okay too.
Exactly. To each his own.
Exactly that. Exactly that.
Who are some of the mentors, the persons that really helped guide you along the way towards professionalizing and when maybe some of those crazy statements were made by a teenage Eva were like, okay, but
Okay, well, teenage Eva is not the Eva you see today. Teenage Eva was difficult.
Okay.
Not difficult as in, I mean, you could definitely teach me something, but you know, when you're, because I'm an only kid, hey? So, yeah. Yeah. I'm very stubborn and very eigenwijs. And I always felt like I just knew better. And who are you? And why are you talking to me? It was just terrible. And looking back at that kid, I was like, oh, you really need a good straightening out. But no problem. Well, the people who definitely brought me to where I am, I have to think immediately of 4 teachers. The first one is definitely Mayra Struken. I don't know if she'll ever listen to this podcast, but Mayra was definitely a big source of inspiration for me, because I knew that she also came to Holland to professionalize and studied at an academy.
Yeah.
And she believed very much in my drive and my motivation to come here and also do the same. And I appreciated that so much, because the first I remember before I even thought about coming to Holland to audition, it was with her that I, for example, went to New York with, and we took dance classes together.
Wow.
And, after dance classes, she would also always give me like good motivational talks about what is important. Remember what you need as a dancer, and remember that dancing, you have to take care of your body, and it's not just about the mentality, but you're also very much there emotionally. Komt heel veel bij kijken namelijk, and those are the things that you don't always really understand before you move here.
Yeah.
She was a really great source of inspiration. Another great source of inspiration is Samantha Vestra. She is the owner of the dance school where I danced on Aruba.
That since you were 3 years old?
Yeah, exactly. So the fact that she already had a school and she provided such a safe space for her students to be able to come and take classes. And actually, she was the one who, so Samantha has always been a very ambitious woman, and she very much wanted us to have our international experiences too, because it was a small island. So the professional chances or the professional stage doesn't always come close enough. Yeah. But she would always look it up. So this woman took us to New Jersey to this dance competition and totally opened our eyes and our minds of what dance looks like in different places in the world.
So how old were you when you went there?
I think I went there when I was 16. I wouldn't have even seen that if it wasn't for her.
Beautiful.
And another teacher who I'm so grateful for, who is now one of my bestest friends, that's Alidia Weaver. Alidia had always included me in her productions on Aruba already, because she's a multidisciplinary artist. This woman does so much. And now she lives here in Holland since 2018, which is amazing, because the projects that she does here, she also includes me.
Awesome.
So she has very much been a big part of my growth as a dancer and my experience, because her performances and her projects, if I may call them, it kind of forces you to step out of your comfort zone.
So let me tap back on tennis, because I also heard in our mini conversation before the official conversation that you might not have been great at tennis or like tennis as much, even though your dad was a tennis instructor, but there was a sport adjacent to tennis that you were pretty good at. Yeah.
Okay, so for context, I think this can be very confusing. So I grew up with my mom. She and my dad had split before I was born. So I was never really visually, never in touch with my father, never communicated with him. And I just don't think the recognition was there, as a father. Yeah. Like, I am your biological father. So it just wasn't there. Yeah. And I think as a kid, I didn't quite understand that, because I do recall asking my mom, like, so how come my cousins have two parents and I have one, you know? Yeah. But it didn't matter at the time, because I felt like having my mother was also just quite enough. And as I said before, I also had my aunt and my cousins, and it just felt good. Yeah. And so
your extended family also sort of filled potentially part of the void.
Exactly.
But as a kid, it's still confusing.
It is confusing, because you're kind of like, I love you, Mom, but where's the father, And I think for a mom, it's very hard to hear your kid ask you that, and you're like, you're too young to understand certain things. Yeah. So I never really got a concrete answer from her at the time. But I heard stories. And I also heard stories from my aunt and her partner, who knew my father too as well. So because I spent a lot of time there. And at the time, I think I was maybe 11, 12, 13, something like that. They had gotten this ping pong table. And my cousin and I would spend hours at that ping pong table, because for us, it was like a moment of catching up. So how was your day? It was good. And switch. And we would be spending hours.
You even got the ping pong sounds down.
I can hear it, because like... it's just I don't know, it's a specific ball, and it's the table that causes it to make a certain noise, and that noise just sticks around. But for me, it was just a moment that I could connect with my cousin. But it was also a moment that I was actually, without realizing it, practicing a certain skill. Tennis is not the same as ping pong, but there's still technique.
Yeah.
You need to know how to play proper tennis. You need to know how to play proper ping pong. And something that was actually just a thing that I do as a way to spend time with my cousin, I realized later that actually me being able to play ping pong is actually a genetic thing. Yeah, I don't play it anymore. Mm-hmm. But I think if you give me a ping pong table and a ball and the I don't know what you call it, racket, sorry.
Paddle?
Yeah, exactly, the paddle. That I would still quite have the knack of it, and it would be quite okay. And I found out later, I think I found out like 3 years ago, 2021, that my father's brother was a professional ping pong player. Yeah. And that kind of like passed down to me somehow.
So that was like a huge sort of aha moment then.
Yeah, you want me to dive into it?
I'm
allowed. Okay, I'm going to dive into it. Okay, so
do you want to dive into it?
I will dive into it because earlier this year in March, I also had a performance where I talked about this, and now I'm kind of like, it's okay. I can talk about it without having to feel hurt or whatever. Okay, so I've been living here since 2013. So I came here and graduated, started working, etc. And obviously, very much interested in trying to get to know what my sister islands are doing. You know, what kind of creative and artistic people are there on Curaçao and Bonaire and Aruba, because I also come from a certain generation. So before me and after me, obviously, there have been many people who do other types of disciplinary stuff in the arts. So at one point, I was on Instagram, and I think a while back, many, many years ago, I started following this actor called Anton de Bies. Mm-hmm. He's from Curaçao. And in 2021, I was just very innocently scrolling through my Instagram, and I see that he had posted something new on his gram. And he was like, hey, you guys, wanted to let you know that a new work of mine is going to premiere on NPO, and it's called De Droevige Kampioen, and it's the story about Robert José. And I was like, Robert José? I don't recognize Robert, but I recognize José because I know from my mom that my biological father, his last name is also José. So I was like, oh, should I message? So I did.
You messaged the actor?
I messaged Anton.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey, how are you? You have no idea who I am, but I wanted to let you know that I've seen works of yours before. I love it. And I see that you're going to be, that you have new works coming out, and it's going to be on NPO. And I saw that it's from Robert José. And I wanted to know if you by any chance happen to know if he has any relation to Humphrey José, which is the name of my biological father. And he's like, hey, yeah, that's his brother. And I was like, huh? And he's like, yeah, you should check it out. The episodes are coming out this Friday or something. Yeah, and I'm like, I'm not going to wait until Friday to find out more about where I come from, especially on the side of my father.
Yeah.
So I was at my partner's house at the time. I'm like, Ben, oh my God, NPO, heb jij abonnement? She's like, yeah. What's wrong? And I'm like, this and this just happened. She's like, oh, maar volgens mij kan je gewoon alles vooraf kijken hoor. And I'm like, well, that's exactly what I'm going to do. So the documentary or the docu-series, because it's like 3 or 4 episodes, excuse me, because it's been 3 years and I have only seen it once. Yeah. For a reason, I'll get to that. I watched the whole thing in one day. So it was like me, the couch, water, tissues, popcorn, 4 hours of just nonstop tears and new knowledge about somebody who is related to me, and especially from a side that I have no clue who and how and what and how, you know, how much this is also a part of myself. Yeah. It's the unfamiliar that I don't know. So it turns out I could imagine that part of that is shocking. Could have been quite difficult. It was shocking. It took me at least a year to get over it, and not get over the fact that that the unfamiliar is now less unfamiliar, but the shock of the story behind Robert. So The series is called De Droevige Kampioen, and it's based off of a book that was written, excuse me, I don't know the name of the writer at the moment, but anyway, a Dutch writer who had spent quite some time with Robert, and based off of the stories and the hours that he had spent with Robert, he decided to write a book about him and about his journey and how he actually became a champion, a ping pong champion. My uncle's a legend. Honestly, if I may, my uncle's a legend.
Yeah.
And I gotta say, I must, because facts are facts, so is my father. Yeah? You've had your career in the tennis world, you've made your name, you've gotten your names in different places around the world, which is amazing, and you're still teaching the generation of today how to play proper tennis. Super cool, you know? But I felt more relation towards my uncle because of the ping pong factor, you know? And my uncle was a ping pong champion. He had suffered an injury on his foot because he also started out as a tennis player, just like my father did. But because of his injury on his Achilles base, he couldn't run long distances anymore, which, you know, in tennis, it's like you need to go from left to right and left to right, etc. So it's quite some physicality there, and he couldn't do it, but he could still swing. Yeah. So that's why he ended up in the ping pong world, and he became super good at it. And yeah, he also became quite a figure for the people back then, from the generation of people who are very much, 10-10-10, you know, the Vrijheid of Curaçao, of course. And he was one of the people who spoke about the freedom of the people and why it's important to embrace this new time that Curaçao is heading towards, etc. So he made a name for himself as a ping pong player. And at one point, he also got to tour the world, play different matches, play different people, play other ping pong enthusiasts that were also very much active at the time. And then I guess as they depicted it in the series, along the road, he had gotten into the drugs, and it was very difficult for him to kick off of it. So returning back to Curaçao, he got so deep into it that at one point he also became a homeless man. And the writer of the book said also in the book, because I had read it, and he said that most of the times that he had spent with Robert were on the streets, in his little home in the woods, somewhere in Curaçao, etc. And and for me, seeing that, because I saw people in the series that made me question, like, oh, is this a family friend? Is this an uncle too? Are you my aunt? Are you my cousin? Like, wow. It's so shocking. And
I mean, this in itself almost sounds like a movie.
It was. It was truly, I was so shocked. I didn't even know how to tell my friends about it, because how do you even go about something like that? You know, you're just scrolling innocently on your Instagram. You find out that someone you follow is playing the role of somebody who is actually your family. And yeah, and I told my mom, and she was like, oh, wow, you know, that's intense, you know, because my mother had always wondered, what was it about my father's family that was so, you know, sometimes you feel like there's something in a family. Elke huisje heeft zijn kruisje, you know, and my mom knew that something had happened in that family. But apparently it wasn't something that was so openly spoken about, but it came about in the series, and it turned out that that on the side of my father, this is intense. So if you haven't seen the series, I'm about to spoil it for you.
Spoiler alert.
It turned out that my grandfather, so my father's father, was quite an alcoholic, and he was pretty abusive. So one evening he had come home very drunk. You know, he had already a couple of drinks down, etc. And I guess my grandmother, at least that's how it was depicted in the series. My grandmother wasn't very happy about it. Of course, you see your husband coming home drunk, and she had said something about it like, yeah, come on, take care of yourself. What is this, etc. And I think in his episodes, and machismo, he stabbed her a couple of times, leaving her there.
She died?
No, I'm coming to it. She didn't die. No, she didn't die. But she was just heavily injured.
Wow.
And he was not aware that his son had witnessed it.
Oh shit.
So he was like, shit, I fucked up. Okay, you know what? Grab your stuff. Let's go for a drive. My grandfather said to one of his sons. I'm assuming my uncle, trouwens. I'm not quite sure. But there were more kids. So I think there were like 4 children or something. And then I think for them it was quite normal. Okay, yeah, we're going to do a drive with Dad. Let's go. Super fun. And it was late at night, and it was him and the kids, and they went for a drive. And he had like a jerry can next to him. And they were driving. Yes. I see your eyes already. Yeah. They were driving, and then at one point he stopped somewhere along the beach, and he took the jerry can. He drank whatever was in that jerry can, and he passed. So the kids kind of just saw their dad died in front of their eyes. And yeah, it was intense. And then my grandmother survived my grandfather's attack. And I think from then on, she kind of like picked herself up and she was like, let's go. We're going to go to Aruba.
Yeah.
I need a fresh start. You know, I can't stay here anymore.
Whoa.
And that's how it came about. And Robert, the ping pong player, he...
was he the eldest?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
Those are the details that I wish that I knew, but
Yeah.
I want to say I don't think so. I think my father was older than him.
Okay.
And he obviously, well, my father stayed in Aruba. He did his tennis, etc. He did his practice because he represented Aruba at the Wimbledon, but Aruba didn't have a team at the time, so he had to represent Venezuela. But my uncle, he wanted to go back to Curaçao because he really wanted to, you know, be something for Curaçao, etc. Represent Curaçao in different places. In this case, for his ping pong career. But he also he had his own sport shop. On Aruba, we have this place called Mario Sport Shop. It doesn't exist anymore. I gotta look at Claire. I don't know if you know if Mario Sport Shop still exists. It does. It does. Not sure. Okay. I'm so sorry. But the owner of that shop also played ping pong with my uncle.
Oh,
you know, so it's the little things, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
And in the series, if you take a look at it, because it's like 4 episodes of like an hour, each one of them, and you see the struggles that he also had, you know? Like, for example, he had a sports shop, and then the sports shop didn't go well, and he needed money, and then he burnt the building down so that the insurance could give him the money for it and all kinds of stuff. And I was like, oh my goodness, you know, and it just kept getting worse and worse. Like shit hit the fan multiple times in that series. And I would be like, whoa, yo.
Can I say something?
Of course. Yes, of course you can.
You know, the life is a funny thing. And at times we can also question when certain parts of our life is maybe feels incomplete or parts are missing. But it also sounds like with all that could potentially transpire there, that maybe there was also a bit of a blessing in disguise of not being fully connected, if you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, I do understand what you're saying. The fact that I can even tell this story to you, I'm happy that I know this.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't have known it if I didn't stumble across that post. You know, because I don't know if I would have been so intrigued to go and look up my uncle if I didn't know who he was. And it was legit just by the last name that I decided to message Anton, is this guy related to my father? Because otherwise I wouldn't have done it.
Yeah.
You know, I wouldn't have done it. But yeah, yeah. I want to say, if you really want to know more about it, watch it. It's on NPO. It's called De Droevige Kampioen. It's heavy. It's not something, it's gonna hurt you. It's gonna make you cry because it's hardships and challenges and the reality of a person who really did lead such a life, you know. He passed away last year. I understood, I think somewhere in October he passed away, which I thought was such a pity because I would have been more inclined to approach him than, for example, approach my father.
Yeah.
And how I would have done that, I think about that so often. Like if he were alive and I was in Curaçao and I would get the chance to talk to him, like, what would I say? Like, hey, atabo sobrinha aqui. Like, hey, your niece. I also played ping pong, by the way. Oh, by the way, I didn't take the tennis path. I took the artistic path. I hope that's good. You know, can we still connect in that way? I don't know. And I'll never get that chance. And that's totally okay. I've made peace with that. But yeah, I do see it indeed as a blessing in disguise that although I didn't grow up knowing much about that side of me, this provided a certain information that is very important and pivotal for me.
Yeah.
Yes, it took me a long time to settle with the fact that this is also a part of me.
Yeah.
And it's in that series that I actually found out about the slavery side of my father, you know, and yeah, that it explains why I look the way I look and why I feel the way I feel, especially also from the influence from my mother's side. Absolutely. You know, I'm such a Latina girl, but I'm also such a Caribbean chick in general. I have Aruba, Curaçao, Colombia, India, Venezuela. I understood that my great-grandfather was a slave from Africa. What part of Africa, I don't know. But wow, knowing that that's also a part of me, that I have some kind of sense of pride in that.
Yeah.
You know? But his story is a story that I continue to tell people because as shocking as it was, it is a real story.
Yeah.
And it's a story that
And it also had a significant impact on
the way I live and the way that I am.
And giving you also more, let's say, color in a part of your story that has been a bit of a blank space.
Yeah, I never put any color there. That's so true. Because we were talking about the gray area. Yeah, no, this was no polished area. Absolutely not, because I didn't know how to fill it in the first place. I think it's very difficult for you to fill in a space if you don't know what belongs in that space.
Exactly.
You know, and I very much had that with that side of me. But what I find also super, then you really know how small the world really is. In 2022, when I saw the series, of course, I was still very much talking about it with people because it was so shocking. I had to talk about it. You know, that's my way of processing. Exactly. I had to process it in a way. And I especially talked to people from Curaçao because I was always wondering, like, hey, by chance, does the name Roberto sound familiar to you? Because he's a homeless guy in Curaçao. So I don't know if he looks familiar. So I even show pictures like, oh my God, yeah, I've seen him. He walks around by D&D supermarket, and I'm like, well, I'm happy that you saw him, you know. It kind of gives me that feeling of like, okay, because in Aruba, when I was little, I would look at the homeless people and I'd be scared. But if now when I'm grown, I look at them and I'm like, you know, just some wrong decisions along the way, you know.
Yeah.
And I see my uncle in that sense too, because in the series they also show how they really tried to get him off the streets, but he just didn't want to. He didn't want to, and he really just wanted to live his life his way. And I have a lot of respect for that, the freedom in that. Obviously, it wasn't the best choice for him at the time, but yeah, the title, the droevige kampioen, it's a tragic story, but it's also a story that, like, if I talk to you now, I'm so happy that I could tell it to you because it's an impactful story. And I do want to say that you should watch it.
I'm definitely going to watch it.
You should watch it. It's very heartbreaking, and it's a very harsh reality, especially from that time, you know, 10-10-10.
Yeah.
It was a quite impactful time for the Caribbean region, specifically Curaçao and
Saint Martin
and other islands. And he was part of that, and I think that's cool.
So it sounds like what was the first lady's name?
Mayra.
Mayra. So Mayra provided a lot of almost sounds like a bit of emotional support along the journey, and a lot of these talks that stayed with you.
Absolutely.
And then was it Stephanie? Samantha. Oh, sorry, Samantha.
Samantha was the one who opened her students' eyes.
Opened the eyes and brought you to new shores and a whole other world. And then Alidia is the one that showed you that beyond dance, the creative in you, the artist in you can also bloom and create whatever that comes to mind in whatever location I
couldn't have said
is
it better.
Available to you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, it's funny because you said people who do epic things, and I'm like, okay, am I one of those people? Because I know a lot of people who do epic things like you know. We had a whole conversation before we started recording. I'm kind of like, this is epic too, you know. But yeah, these are people that definitely, even 20 years from now, 30 years from now, maybe even if I ever stop dancing, these are still the people that I'm very much grateful for, because I wouldn't even have a living, you know. So yeah, definitely these are the people that I take with me for sure.
Well, you probably would have a living, but you wouldn't have a purposeful living.
I want to say I wouldn't have a living in the sense of like
that you're really connecting to the core and what you're passionate about.
Exactly. And discovering what dancing means for me, you know, and how can I make a living with that?
Yeah.
Because I'm pretty sure we're going to talk about this too, but I think a lot of people just have that, I don't want to say an assumption, but I think people have the impression that you can't do that.
Yeah.
Well, you very much
can't make a living with
as
dance.
an art, as an artist or as a creative or with a certain art form, etc. And I do think that you have to really try and do more homework in order to find out what you can do in order to make that happen. But as I said, I had never any other interest in any other subject or art form or other ways of...
So could you unpack that a bit? How do you make a living with dance?
Boy, okay, listen. Okay, first of all...
Should I take a sip?
You can take a sip. As I said, there are so many ways to be able to make it out there. For me, it happened like this. I had been dancing since I was 3 years old. And I think my teachers saw that it was just something that I enjoyed doing. I'm also quite expressive. So I also very so often I got the opportunity to also just take like a lead role in a production, or I could be a soloist, or I don't know. I think the potential was just there, and they trusted me enough to be able to get on with it. When I was 16, I realized, okay, I want to do this. Also because I must say my body can handle it. You know, I'm a very athletic type of person.
Yeah.
So I kind of like, okay, if I have to dance, I'm gonna dance. You know, I'm willing. So when I got here, and that was in 2013, well, it was a bit of a shock, because you come and live here, which is so different than what you're used to back home.
That's
You're
true.
from St. Martin, so you know, and your partner also knows Claire. You know, leaving Aruba and coming here, initially it's going to be very shocking for you.
Yeah.
And I have to say that if it wasn't for the dance, I don't know if I would have actually made it.
Yeah.
The dancing was not just what I came to study, but it was at the same time also my coping mechanism. So I studied for 4 years, and within those 4 years, I met
and where
people.
did you study?
Amsterdamse Hogeschool voor de Kunsten.
Okay.
Academie voor Theater en Dans. It's in Amsterdam at the Waterlooplein. Within the 4 years, I met a lot of other dancers, either Dutch or Belgian or African. There were some Caribbean students, but not a lot at the time. I hope that changes, of course.
Yeah.
And teachers, because that's your first network,
your
classmates and your teachers. And you just have to try and figure out what it is that you want. Because I knew already that I wasn't going to be what they call uitvoerende danser. So I decided to go for the dance education instead, because I kind of feel like you can dance, but if you can teach, that also has a bigger, how do you call that? Like a bigger market for you.
Yeah.
Because I kind of feel like with the teaching, you can really earn as a dancer as well. But most of the time, you're based off of contracts. Well, if you're a teacher...
You have a certain stability.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I went for that. And obviously, while you're studying, you do a lot of internships. You start already with little kids, which was not my thing. And you kind of go through all the generations. So you start with the little ones, you go from the kleuter, then the peuter, dan kleuter, basisschool, middelbare school, zelfs volwassenen, ouderen, etc. And yeah, I gotta say, I had a lot of internships, and within those internships, I scored some jobs, and that's kind of how it starts.
Yeah.
If you can score a job before you graduate, you're okay, because you need to have some type of income. Because once you're done studying, Duo is not going to keep sponsoring you.
Yes.
And you have to make sure that whatever you earn is kind of equivalent to what you used to get from Duo, or a little bit more.
Yeah.
So mind you, if you plan to do this, when I was still at school in my third year, 2016, I was already starting to score my jobs, because I knew that within a year I was going to graduate, and if I don't have a job...
So those were teaching jobs? Or
those were teaching jobs, all teaching jobs.
Okay.
Some of them were performing jobs, but that's like a one-time thing. So you perform once, you get paid, bye-bye.
Yeah.
But the teaching jobs are more consistent. You come every week, And then if they like your work, you can stay. They offer
Yeah.
you more hours. Like, hey, I see you teach ballet, but can you do contemporary? Can you do modern? And that's kind of how it fell in for me. I was in good contact with certain teachers, and they were also looking for people who could substitute their classes. And that's kind of how it starts. You have to invest a lot in that.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people underestimate when they have like a bottle or an event for the alumni or for the students. Go to those because that's potentially where you're going to find your next job
Yeah.
and your next network. So by the time I graduated, I think I had about 6 freelance jobs and like 2 horeca jobs. So it was a lot to juggle. A lot.
Say 8 different jobs.
Yeah.
Jesus
Every day I
Christ.
had something else, and I had to go from one city to the other and teaching here and teaching there, teaching the next group. And my friends never saw me because I'm grinding.
Yeah.
I'm out there grinding, making
Yo,
my
they're
nut.
hustling.
You know?
Every day we hustling.
my Jesus, my echt. And it was intense at times, you know, that I would just come home late, and I was living with my housemates, and I would be just like, you know what? Sorry for my French, but this. It's just like, what is it worth it? Is it worth it? And I'm kind of like, Eva, remind yourself why you're doing this in the first place. It's just crazy sometimes. And then, you know, you're kind of like, okay, I'm going to hold on to this. So I have to say it wasn't easy.
Yeah.
But the more jobs you get, and the more you start to realize, okay, so this is what I like, but this is what I don't like.
Yeah.
And that's important. So you can start to filter the jobs that you like the least.
Because it's something that I say all the time is early in your career, it's also best to go a bit broad.
Yep.
That you taste multiple things, even during the course of your studies. You taste multiple aspects of the thing that you're interested in, and after you've tasted, then you start to also realize what you have a taste for.
Yeah. What are the things that you notice? Okay, this is something that I can handle, first of all.
Yeah.
This is something that I like.
Yeah.
And I think I can actually get these students somewhere, because it's
and
not always about you.
And you can grow and become an expert in that
In your
particular
craft.
thing. Yeah.
Exactly. And
So once you go broad, then you have to narrow back down
exactly
and
that.
focus in.
And as I said, I'm always kind of like once you start to filter the jobs that you like the least, and then you keep the ones who give you the stability, a good income, and the ones that you look forward to go to, because it's not fun when you know that, oh, I gotta go to these kids. Great. Well, it costs you more energy to do that than if you just go to a job that you're like, yeah, I picked this job because I know that I'm gonna have, you know, my fix as a teacher. The kids are gonna learn something. And yeah, the stability is also quite important.
Yeah.
And I must say now, because now we're 11 years later, I graduated 7 years ago. Now I'm at the point in my career that I'm like, yeah, I have a pretty stable income. My job is good. I know what I have to do as a mentor, but also as a teacher, because those are 2 different things. Yeah, it takes time. You have to invest. But it's not impossible. Yeah. And I think that's especially what I want to say. Anybody can do it, but you have to want to. And you have to be able to just have that determination and motivation to be like, okay, I picked for this, and this is what I'm going to make my life based off of. Yeah.
How did your Caribbean background sort of influence the way that you execute your work today?
Well, no, it's good that you ask. Actually, in May, I was part of this program where they were talking about the linguistic phenomenon of being able to code switch. You know, because as Caribbean beings, I'm sure you do it too, especially now in the Netherlands. Now the Dutch comes into the code switching. But living on Aruba, it was very much a code switching between Papiamento, English, Spanish. Later on came Dutch, of course. And why I mention this is because I always thought that this was going to be a problem for me working here, because I speak Dutch. Yeah. But now I notice that I actually don't care anymore. And I kind of just go about it. I even let my students know, like, listen, your teacher speaks 4 languages. Deal with it. As long as the message comes across. Yeah. But if you still have questions, let me know. I think that aspect, that Caribbean aspect, is the one that definitely also opened a lot of doors for me, because I ended up teaching at a school where they had Spanish kids. I can speak Spanish, you know, or I had a lot of like Caribbean students who got in touch with me, and they were like, hey, so we heard that you're busy down there as a dancer, but do they speak English down there? And I'm like, yeah, of course, you know, and if you're here, let me know. And then I take you to that place if you want to, and then, you know, make you feel a little bit more comfortable, because I think a lot of people are kind of like, yeah, I won't make it down here if I don't speak Dutch, but that's not totally true.
Yeah.
Because there are enough English institutes here as well. And the Dutch can speak English, maybe not fantastic, but they can understand.
And I would also say that in general, the country has had quite a bit of migration in the past couple decades.
Absolutely.
And simultaneously, some of the biggest cities, I have seen them internationalize even more. Like here in Eindhoven, for instance. So you came in 2013. I came in 2003.
Oh, wow. Okay.
2003.
10 years before.
And the city has completely changed, and it's way more international than it ever was.
Yep.
So that in itself, persons don't have to worry about it as much.
No.
But it's still very good for you to be able to learn and speak the language, because it helps with a lot of different aspects of life.
Absolutely. No, but I also think, because when you come here, you realize, okay, I can speak Dutch, but I just can't speak the advanced Dutch that they speak here.
Yeah.
Which brings me to my next point of your question, that, like, you know, being Caribbean, how did you like navigate here? When I started HBO, I didn't do all of my exams and my essays, etc. in Dutch. I had actually written to the, what you call it, the Studentenraad, and asked if it would be possible for me to actually do my work in English, but then academic English, because I knew I was super good at that.
Yeah.
And I could handle that. And at first it was kind of like, oh, we're not quite sure, because the study is, of course, in Dutch. You have to be able to speak Dutch. But luckily, my teachers were like, no, it's okay. Let her do it. And if we see that it goes better and you're willing to try out in Dutch, then we'll try it in Dutch. You know? So I really much appreciated that, because I didn't want to. I mean, you don't want to come across over as I can't speak Dutch. I can, but you have to give me the time to land in the level of Dutch that you speak. Because everything that we read was all in academic Dutch, and I understood everything, but I also knew that it was going to take me some time to just be able to even get it out of my system. Yeah. Writing-wise.
Yeah.
So I was very happy that at first I could just like, okay, let me settle into this Dutch cocoon, but let me do it in English first. And they were totally okay with that, which I could appreciate.
But that in itself is, it shows, what's the word I'm looking for?
Flexibility.
Flexibility, yeah.
Yeah.
You know that I couldn't. I just lost the word, and then the only thing that came to mind was cojones.
Oh no.
Well, it took some courage. Maybe courage is then the PG version of that.
Some balls.
It took some balls to go to the school board and say, hey, I'm willing to do everything. I just want to do it in a different language, and it's a language that all of you can also understand and speak. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
I mean, I think if you want me to thrive in your system, in your school system, I'm willing, and I know I can, but it's just going to have to take a little bit of adjusting. Yeah. But at the end, I think my teachers also could see like, okay, I understand why you want to do it in academic English, because it's kind of like your second language. You're asking me to speak an academic type of language that comes to me very foreignly. Yeah. It's my fourth. Yeah. You know, and if you know a little bit of like the colonization, I'm not even supposed to speak that language, but I do. Yeah. So I'm willing to adjust to your system, but then if you're willing to be a little bit more flexible towards me, who's a newcomer in your country, that would be fantastic. And I'm happy that they could do it, because at the end, I must say, I got rather pretty good grades. You know, nice. I think as the message comes across, we should be fine. Yeah,
it is really kind of interesting and funny, because I had a similar experience.
Really?
it wasn't throughout my school, but for my final internship, my report, I requested if I could write it in English.
Okay.
And I eventually got the approval. And because I could write it in English, then like, I really felt like I could shine.
Yeah.
And in the end, I got like 8.5 and a very good review, etc.
Mm-hmm.
But I know that would have probably been different if I had to write the whole thing in Dutch.
Of course.
Because it wouldn't feel as natural,
No.
even though I'm capable of. But the execution of it wouldn't have that. It wouldn't have that extra spark that you know that you have in you. So you mentioned or more earlier when we were talking off camera about the podcast. So how did that came to be?
Well, my friend Guillaume Goedhoop, she had an idea a couple of years back. And she called me random. I was in the subway. I think I just came from work or something. And she's like, yeah, listen, I really want to create this podcast where we can talk about the challenges and the many unseen and untalked about emotions that you feel as a Caribbean being living in Holland. I was like, oh, whoa, those are really interesting topics. She's like, yeah, I want to do it with you. How do you feel about it? I was like, yeah, of course. Guyana is somebody who I've known since I was 3 years old. We've known each other.
So from the dance school?
No, from kleuter. We went to the same kleuterschool.
Yeah.
And we lost touch for some time and then came across each other again. And we've been really good friends since. And yeah, she created it and I co-hosted with her, and we're now 2 seasons in.
Nice.
And as I said, it's basically a podcast that's surrounded around the stories of people who immigrate to the Netherlands, but also kind of juggle that in between life, as I told you, going home and coming back to the Netherlands, what you actually also sort of call your own home because you're building your life here. Yep.
100%.
Yeah, and navigating that area. I don't want to call it the gray area because it's not gray. It's very much real.
It's very colorful. It's like a blended of all these colors that.
And the gray is there, but it's a different, another like silvery shade of gray.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It shines.
The silver lining gray.
Yeah, it's very much polished, and I live in that area, and so do many of us.
Yeah.
And so the podcast is actually surrounded around those type of stories and people who also come from the Caribbean. And it doesn't have to per se be from Aruba, Bonaire, or Curaçao, or the Bersalen, as I said. But we also interviewed people who, for example, come from Jamaica, people who come from St. Eustatius, people who come from St. Martin, who have similar feelings and similar, information and indeed the challenges that they also had to go through to be able to just settle here and find your way. And what does that mean? And what does it mean for me to go home? What is home? Does home even feel like home for me anymore? Or is it, all of those questions come about in the podcast. And I'm really proud of it, to be honest, because we've heard such wonderful stories from people who I'm like, wow, you could be older than me, but there's so much that I can relate to, even Suriname, or people who come from Panama. All of these people, and it already comes to show you how many nationalities that are that live here, Caribbean or even like Latin America, regio daar. It's all it makes you feel less alone.
So there's also the performing aspect, touring. Could you unpack that a bit for us?
Touring. I've toured once, and I'm very lucky to say that I have toured, by the way, because it's a cool thing to do. So at school, in my academy time, I had this teacher, and she was looking for somebody who would be able to substitute her ballet classes.
Okay.
And she and we built up a really good professional relationship with each other. And in the end, she also introduced me to her sister, who is also a professional dancer. And they wanted to tour with a production that was about vrouwenhandel.
Okay.
Yeah, the trafficking of women.
Yeah.
Which also, by the way, a lot of dancers end up in this industry as well. I have to call it an industry because it is what it is. And so with my teacher at the time and her sister, and I think it was also like 2 musicians and a music producer and all that, we had like a group of like five dancers, and she was like, a lot of theaters in Germany are looking to have us. Do you want to come? And I'm like, me? Sure. So we started off in Mannheim, then we went to Frankfurt, and then a little bit of other cities that are outside of Germany as well. Berlin, and then Germany is huge, honestly. Huge. Germany is huge. But yeah, it was interesting because as a dancer, then you learn like, okay, what does it feel like to tour? You know, you're exhausted. Yeah. You go from city to city. Sometimes you have to perform 2-3 times a day. Yeah. And every performance feels different because of the energy level in your body too, and the audience that you have in front of you. And I mean, it's about Frauenhandel, dus it's quite an intense topic too. True. So how are the German audience going to take this? You know, is it going to be positive? Is it going to make an impact? Or is it going to be like, oh, this is the shittiest thing I've ever seen? It really depends on who you have in front of you. But touring as a dancer is fun, and it's very interesting. It's very there's a lot of learning lessons there. But I think the thing that I loved the most was being able to learn from the people that I could work with at the time, because they were already so much more experienced than I was. My teacher and her sister at the time, they were just one of the best dancers that I ever seen. So it was so cool to even be a part of that. Yeah. And the tour
and this was while you were in university.
Yeah, this was in 2016, just rounding up my 3rd year, and then we toured for like 2 months. And it was brilliant. And I'm very grateful to be able to have done that, because I know that touring for dancers is like, oh my God, if you get to tour with an artist, that would be so cool. And this wasn't per se like, we didn't tour with Chris Brown, no, but this was something meaningful and something important and an important subject. And you got to stand on different stages. And I think as a dancer, that's a very nice accomplishment, you know. So that's kind of how it basically happened. Again, network, connections, it's all about who you know.
And it's super important, because you mentioned it earlier that there were so many people with from different walks of life, so from different ethnicities, backgrounds, etc. And you also went out of your comfort zone many times to connect with these people and build up that network. It's something that I always try to encourage students to do, because from the Caribbean, we also tend to sort of stay within the little cocoon of the Caribbean network in that comfortability. Yeah. But there's so much more for us to experience and see if we step a bit more out of that comfort zone every now and then. Epic only happens outside of the comfort zone.
No, but absolutely. I have to say, even because I'm 32, there was a time that I was like, okay, is dancing still something for me? And then I realized you have just been doing the same thing for a long time. You need to switch it up a little bit for yourself. Yeah. So you can imagine for like, I don't know, since I was 29
years.
Yeah, well, this ballerina girl. Yeah. Because I started really as a ballet girl on her point shoes, you know. This ballerina girl has been doing the same thing for so long. It's about time you learn new styles. Yeah. You know, and I have to say that this past season, I've done now hip hop classes, dance hall classes, and heels.
Dance hall and heels? Okay.
No, not dance hall in heels. Dance hall and heels. So heels classes.
Oh, okay. So, heels classes. Yeah, heels. So there's dancing heels classes, but then what are you dancing?
Well, it's quite sexy.
I mean, what type of music?
Well, our teacher is very much into like those R&B type of tracks. Okay. For like, we had an end of the year showcase and we danced on Dirty from Christina Aguilera. I don't know if that song is familiar to you.
Yeah. I mean, I am that old. And that features Redman.
Yeah, that's it. Redman, that's it. So we danced a whole choreography on heels on that track.
Oh my God.
And that's not something that I would usually do. Yeah. But I also realized that it has to do with like, I don't know if you have this, but you get to a certain age and you're kind of like, fuck it.
True.
I'm going to do it.
True.
I might look ridiculous, but this is me getting out of my comfort zone, because it's not supposed to feel comfortable.
No.
You know?
When it gets too comfortable,
switch it up.
You're already dying.
Yeah, switch it up.
So you need to switch it up to bring that spark again.
Exactly. And so we had that showcase, and I was on stage, and I got off of that stage, and I was like, You did
I
that.
danced dirty in my heels.
You did that. And I have to say, since then, it's gotten more interesting.
Okay, nice.
You know, it's gotten more interesting that I don't ask myself like, okay, is this still for me? Yeah.
So
it
you
is.
found a new spark to breathe new life into it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And this is a classical question that I ask, but I almost feel like the advice has already sort of been wrapped up in all that we've spoken about. But if you would look into the crystal ball, back to the 18-year-old Eva, what advice would you give her?
You're going to be okay. You're going to be very happy. You're going to be very happy. You have to push through.
So was she a bit insecure about being happy?
I think 18-year-old me didn't quite know what it meant.
To be happy.
Yeah. You know, I have to say, generally, I'm a very optimistic person and quite jolly. You know, I'm not really, I don't want ever people to look at me and be like, she has a bad aura. I don't want that. And I think that at 18, I was still very much angry and not quite sure what I want. And as I said, very stubborn and eigenwijs. And, you know, looking back at myself, I'm kind of like, loosen up, man. So I kind of want to tell my 18-year-old self, you're going to be fine. You're going to be fine. You're going to make it. You're going to make it happen. You're going to find your way. And you're going to find people on that way that are also going to push you to push through and keep pushing yourself. And good friends, nice partner. Yeah, I can't complain. Now
Nice.
at my 32, I'm like, yeah, it's solid. It's solid. And it's not impossible.
What made 18-year-old you a bit angry? If we unpack maybe some aspects of your childhood growing up in Aruba.
I think it has to do with my sense of freedom. Because I felt a little trapped down there, you know. A lot of my friends at the time had already moved to Holland.
Yeah.
My cousins specifically. So I kind of felt like, oh, so you get to have your freedom. You know, oh, you don't have to live with your parents anymore.
Yeah.
Oh, you get to do this, you get to do that. And I kind of felt like I didn't have that. Well, I did. It was just in another form.
Yeah.
But you're so fixed on your own, because as a teenager, you're so like this. You don't look, you don't open your eyes. You're so focused on yourself. I kind of felt like as a teenager, I was pretty egoistic. And I'm an only kid. So obviously, it's not like I was very much used to having more people around me and sharing, you know. And now I'm kind of like, please take it, you know, kind of like healing that part of me now. I think I was just very much, I felt trapped. Yeah. And I felt like, oh, great, I have to stay here in Aruba and I'm going to have to do a study that I don't like. And I'm going to have to build a life that I don't like, because I've always been motivated by the fear of being average.
Why didn't you move at 18 then to come here?
I didn't move at 18 because, well, first I did HAVO, first of all. And my exam year, I had to do twice.
Okay.
And somehow I was like, okay, am I ready to go? No, not just yet. So I did VWO.
Okay.
Didn't finish that. That's fine.
Okay.
But I did go to work.
Yeah.
And I'm happy that I did that, because I needed that. It gave me a sense of independency, that I could go to work and I could earn my own money, which also gave me that type of freedom, which I was very much craving. Yeah. So if I were to go out, I would never have to ask my mother for my money. I had my own, you know. I always told myself, don't stick around for too long.
Don't get too comfortable.
No, exactly. Don't stick around for too long, because I'm somebody who needs a lot of variety. And I was like, if I stay here, then I'm going to stay here like the rest of these people. Oh, no. So I stayed there for like a year or two. 2012, I came here to do an audition to be able to study at the dance academy. But at the time, I didn't get in. But I was also not really prepared for it. So I kind of feel like the universe protected me at the time. But I really wanted it. I really wanted to dance. I just wanted to make that part of my life come true. And then at the time, it had nothing to do with freedom, but it also had to do with the fact that Yeah, in Aruba, it's not normalized to study art.
Yeah.
It's very much seen as an over-glorified hobby. And I'm kind of like, well, it's not a hobby for me, folks. So, bye-bye. And then in 2013, I came again and I stayed a little longer so that I could audition at all of the academies. So if I couldn't get into one, I could maybe have the other as a backup.
Yeah. So you came with a better plan.
With a better plan. I was better prepared. I had better training. I had just come back from New York as well. So you can't say that I hadn't been, in any case, active with my body, you know.
Because in 2012, you weren't that active. You were more...
I think I kind of just saw it as like, oh, I'm going to get in. It's fine.
Yeah.
But it wasn't that way at all.
And then you got the reality slap.
So, exactly that. And then in 2013, when I came, I auditioned at all of the schools, and I got accepted at all of them.
Oh.
So I could pick whichever one I wanted, and Amsterdam had my heart at the first instance already.
Yeah.
So that's where I ended up. And then I was like, here's my freedom.
Nice. So we touched on the present, we touched on the past, we touched on all aspects of the journey, the mentors, the persons that play these vital roles, even touching on the fact that now you're able to play this vital role in the life of others. What's the future looking like? What are some of the long-term goals that you may want to share with folks? For your company, but also within teaching, what are some of the things that you see that you want to get into?
Well, I'm 32 now, and I have to say I'm still very much looking for that challenge. You know, as I said, I'm taking other dance classes now, so that does me well, bringing me also in a totally different network opportunity once more. So I'm loving that, and I definitely think I can professionally dance until if this body keeps it up, I think 40 for sure.
Yeah.
But I am looking for a career switch. I won't lie.
Okay.
So while dance has my heart, theater and acting also has my heart. And so I'm trying to navigate how I can get into that industry. So I'd say in the long term, I still see myself dancing. I still see myself teaching. As I said, if you can teach, that's already a pretty good skill to have, because you can teach anywhere. But I also very much look forward to maybe stepping into something new, like what I said, the acting. And yeah, I'm somebody who likes to be in front of a camera, but I also love to be behind the camera. I learn a lot from directors and also other creators who, for example, want to do a creative project, and then they're looking for people who are willing to help. I'm the first person to put my hand up because I'm so interested. I want to know. I want to learn. I'm very, in that sense, I'm very much a Sagittarius, you know. Sagittarius in me is so craving for knowledge and new skills. Yeah. So I can also do it myself, but maybe even pass it on to someone else. Yeah. Yeah, I see myself doing that in a couple of years.
And also, well, being obviously a Caribbean person and have gone through this trajectory, spent time in the States, here in Europe. What would you want to see for persons coming from small islands pursuing these passions? What advice would you give, or what would you want to see sort of change for them for the better?
Well, first, I think it would just be really nice if you're a parent and you see that your child has a knack for something, let's say that's dance or music or acting or anything that's in that creative expression industry, please encourage your child to also do something with that. Yeah. Because it's important. I don't know if I would have been as happy in my life if I had picked something else. I actually even can't imagine it, to be honest, because I'm so deep into that industry of dance that it's just who I am. But I want to say, if you're going to come here in the Netherlands or wherever you end up going, you could also go to the USA or wherever it is that you see yourself settling, hey, because you can do that anywhere in the world as long as you have what you need. Make sure that you really believe in your craft, because that's what's going to make you the artist in the future. Yeah, we're looking well, were, as if it's me and my people, but what I would then personally look for is individualism. And so my advice would be to really know who you are, bring out the core of your being forward, because that's what the industry needs.
Yeah.
The industry is not looking for people who look the same. The industry is actually looking for people who have something special, something unique, something that they haven't seen before.
Yeah.
And we're all very individual dancers. If we talk about dance in this case, we're very individual dancers. We don't move the same. We don't look the same. We don't express ourselves the same. And we also don't obtain information the same. And that's what makes it so interesting in the art form.
Yeah.
It's individualism. So bring your individualism. Don't change yourself just because you want to make it somewhere, because then that place is not for you.
True.
That place is so not for you. You want to be in a place where you can actually thrive being yourself while also growing and learning new things to make you as an artist and your identity be even more broadened and more horizons. And I think a lot of people just have a whole different perspective, like, oh, if I look like her, if I look like him, and I do it like them, that's what's going to get me forward.
Yeah.
No, do it like you,
Yeah.
because that's what I'm interested in.
Awesome. Miss Eva,
Tell me.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
I definitely enjoyed this energetic conversation. Thanks for coming and meeting us all the way down in the south.
You guys are cool. I want to do it more often, actually. Yeah. You guys are cool. I like Claire. She's next to me. Y'all can't see her, but she's a baddie. And John. John looks like an Arubian.
Oh, shit.
He's
St. Martin, they claiming me.
I mean, you're part of Arubian, though, because you're with Claire.
Yeah. So I have 2 Arubian kids. And as I said, my mom was born in Aruba, so there is that connection there.
You see, and he has nice light eyes. Like, you don't see that often. That's the first thing I said to Claire, like, hey, is he Arubian? She's like, no, he's from St. Martin. I'm like, oh, he's got light eyes. Oh, my God. So, yeah. Girls, watch it.
He married her.
He married with children. No, I'm joking. No, but thank you. I had fun. It was good. It's a really, really cool platform.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So, guys, I'll see you in the next one. Don't forget to like, subscribe, place comments. If I forgot to ask any particular special questions, let me know. Share this with all of your peoples. Aruba, St. Martin, Suriname, Netherlands, everywhere. Oh, I even forgot to ask, Eva, where can they find you?
I have to say, I'm not too active on socials. It's just better for your mental state of mind, babes.
True.
Please live in the present, in the real world. But if you want to follow me, you can find me on Instagram. Gewoon Eva Croes XX. Croes with a C, by the way. I'm on Facebook. In all honesty, I only keep my Facebook open for the Arubian news. I just want to know that everything is okay.
Yeah.
And I'm on TikTok too, but TikTok is more for the fun of it. So yeah, I'd say if you really want to get in touch with me, just email me.
Okay.
And you can email me at evamacruz@gmail.com.
Thank you once again, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace. Bless.